The March 2024 MacVoices Update. This is MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the March 2024 MacVoices Update. And I want to start with a question that I received from a viewer and listener who asked a pretty basic question, at least it's basic in my mind, and that is, why do I do a monthly update? Some shows throw in news about what they're doing, changes they're making, new services, new options, or highlighting their existing services. Either at the beginning of every show, the end of every show, it kind of becomes a script that almost we pass right over. And I do some of that too, because there's things that I think should be included in every show. For example, how to get in touch with me, how to participate in MacVoices and support MacVoices. But other things, like some of the things that we talk about, that I'll talk about today too, one example is that they need to be highlighted a little bit more and maybe explained instead of just having something change out from under you. And if you're a regular viewer or listener to the show, you'd kind of like to know why, what the deal was and why it happened. So that's why I do the updates. I want to highlight some of the things that are going on, maybe explain some of the schedule aberrations that occur occasionally. That too will be talked about in a little while. So that's why I do the updates. It also feels like it consolidates, at least for me, the messages that I want to communicate out to you into one place where I can put them, you can find them. If you find them useful, great, because I try not to make the updates pretty short. But if you don't find them useful, then you can skip over them easily and just move on to more content. So that's why these updates happen every single month. That's the first thing. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the things that are happening right now. I want to make sure you know that in April, the distribution of MacVoices will potentially be disrupted just a little bit because I am attending 3 different conferences, one of which is NAB in Las Vegas. And so sometimes those kind of events just don't lend themselves for releasing shows on any kind of consistent basis. So if a MacVoices episode doesn't show up in your feed for a day or two, don't worry about it. It just means that I'm on the ground actually gathering up more content and interviewing more people for you to listen to that I think are worth you hearing from. So that's the first thing. Second thing is a little bit of a change that I've been evolving into the live shows and the way they're distributed into the MacVoices feed. Up to fairly recently, I was just taking the show, however long it lasted, basically trying not to cut anybody off in mid-sentence, but chopping them up into 3 different sections of roughly equal length for that show. That was fine, and it's fulfilled one thing that I've also heard from plenty of viewers and listeners on, is that they would like shorter episodes, a little more easily consumed, rather than some of the previously long episodes that we did. So that's why my target time right now is down to 20 to 35 minutes at the outside. So that said, what was happening though is that our conversations about a particular topic or two were being cut into different pieces so that the conversation might not wrap up at the end of, say, part 1, and you'd have to then wait for part 2 to come out or skip over to part 2 to finish up the discussion. And that just, didn't feel quite right. So what I've started doing is trying to limit the amount of time we spend on a given topic, make sure everybody gets their say and everybody has the observations, and once in a while, like a MacVoices Live that you'll be seeing coming shortly, our discussion of the Apple DOJ action, sometimes that just doesn't work and it has to be cut into 2 pieces, otherwise it drags out. But I'm trying to do more logical breaks where the topic changes, so that if you've listened to topic A and you really, want to hear all of it, you will hear all of it in one episode. And then topic B or B and C might come in the next episode, and so on. It feels a little bit more logical to me. It feels like I don't have to, cut things off artificially. It also means that I'm not recording the outros a lot of times saying next time on MacVoices. So you may have noticed that change. You also notice that the titles don't include part 1, part 2, part 3, occasionally part 4. They're more focused on actually what is being discussed in that episode. So it may only be important to me. I don't know. I'd love to have feedback from you as to whether you think it's a positive, a negative, or just doesn't matter to you. But it feels like the show becomes then a little more approachable based on subject rather than just being another Mac Voices Live discussion. The other highlight I want to make this month is the MacVoices Magazine. This is our attempt at gathering up useful information about what you can do with your Apple tech. We skip over Apple News because there's so much news out there. I'm toying with the idea of how to handle some of that so that we can still be maybe a news source for you. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's so much stuff you can do with your Apple tech and how it relates to other tech that you might have. That's what MacVoices Magazine is. It gathers up all the articles I can find that I think are useful and teach you how to do something with your tech. It was a little sparse coming off CES for some reason. It seemed like the tech press had shied away from a lot of how-tos covering some of the more sensational things. But now that's coming back to life a little more, so you're probably seeing more articles flipped into the magazine. You can get MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard, or you can access the web version at macvoices.com/magazine. I personally think Flipboard is a better experience because it feels a little more like a traditional magazine where you're flipping through stories, but then can tap and read the entire story. So that's just one other thing. Other than that, I always like to bring you the support report because I like to especially highlight and thank the people who help keep Mac Voices going. As I've talked about in previous updates, right now the sponsorship situation is a little bit grim, and the bills keep coming in regardless. So this is a special thank you to everyone who has signed up. If you can help support us, please do. Patreon.com/MacVoices, because it does cost something not inconsequential to do Mac Voices, for the hosting, the podcast distribution, all of those things. If you can't, that's fine. I get it. But please, if you can, share the show. In fact, anyone, please share the show because that helps grow the audience and makes things even better for all of us. So with that, thank you to the Patreon sponsors. This month's support report includes, at Platinum, we have RVS. At Gold, we have Web B, Jason C, Sando C, David G, Robert G, Tim G, Marty J, and Frank P. At Silver, we have Andrea S, Baz, Craig A, Eric B, Eric C, Brett C, Bruce E, John E, Barry M, Chuck P, Andrea S, and Daniel S. And at Bronze, we have Max C, Brian F, Craig A, Craig H, Clinton M, John M, Patrick N, and Prop P. Those are the people who are consistently supporting Mac Voices and helping me bring it to you. If you'd like to be among them, Patreon.com/MacVoices is where you go. You get access to the Mac Voices Slack. You also get access to Mac Voices After Dark, the pre and post show of Mac Voices Live, which is always entertaining to say the least. And you get your name mentioned in the panel at the end of every show that you sponsor for any given month. So again, patreon.com/MacVoices. If you can join us at any level, it would be greatly appreciated. A quick note, though, to the patrons that I just mentioned out there and any new ones coming on. If you sign up and don't receive an email from me or haven't received an email from me about getting access to the Mac Voices Slack, please drop me an email, chuck@macvoices.com, or send me a message on Patreon. I know there's some of you that have just decided you don't want to participate in another social network, and that's fine. I just want to make sure you know that the option is always open, and if you haven't received that, then there's a glitch somewhere in our communication, and I want to get it fixed. That's the March 2024 Mac Voices update. I'll be back with more soon. Until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, And get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.